stuff. Okay, guys, thanks for tuning in today. Super excited about our show this month, which is going to be One of One with Pat Myers and Jef Hartsel. They're going to be showing all through the month of June a series of Polaroids collected over decades of photography through the 80s, 90s, 2000s. Something that's really cool for us in the shop, having it be on Polaroid. These are originals, names in the title, One of One, just like a lot of the characters, a lot of the stories that you'll hear today, true originals. So super stoked to have Jef and Pat. You guys are tuned in to skateboarding culture locally or even just generally. These guys have been at it for a long time and have crossed paths with a lot of really radical people. So super fortunate to have these two here today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Pat and Jef.
Right on, Pat. Thanks.
Andrew. How's it, everybody?
Hello.
Thanks for joining us and hearing us out. Let's get a little game about our images, how they became, backstories, and talk story. A couple images I was going to talk about. We could start with one. The first one that I started with, yep, that one there. Thanks, Drew. This is Gianca Lazarus, and she is a friend from South Africa that lived all over the place. And I was visiting her in New York and shot this in her New York apartment. She had a small New York apartment. I had the SX70, was just kind of messing around with it, and I backed up into a window and used the window light. Her room was small and it didn't have much light coming from the side, so there was dark fall off on the sides. Shot this one and looked at it and said, let's keep this going. And Gianca is really inspiring. She is an amazing skater and charging surfer. And from the time I met her, I watched her, she always had an interest in photography, but I watched her get a camera, start shooting, and short time later, she started showing me the stuff she was working on. And it was so impressive. I could tell right away she had just such a knack for composing, lighting, everything. And just to watch her take it and run was really, really influential for me because she just had so much raw talent and just went with it. The other day I checked out her website and she has a huge body of great portraiture, documentaries, all kind of really, really good, rich photos. And a lot of it's environmentally conscious, which is what we all love too. GiancaLazarus.com. Check it out. She's one of the good ones. Good human. So it's the one that started it all for me. And moving on, let's go with next photo, which is Mark Oblo. And here we have Hawaii's own Mark Oblo, who I've known since 6th grade. Go way back. Mark's been a lifelong friend and just a guy that lifts people up around him. Some people feel they need to gain by thumbing people down. Mark's the opposite. He just lifts other people around him up and it pays off. So if you look at this photo, he looks pretty serious, but if you know Mark, he's probably the least serious guy and one of the funniest guys you'll ever meet. He is a classic character and a brother. And actually back in 7th grade, he had made a t-shirt that had his picture on it and it said, "Do you know this man?" And the portrait on his shirt didn't look much different than this portrait here now. He doesn't age. The guy's timeless. He always was taking photos back in the day. He's got a huge library of really cool candid photos. Sometimes it'll be your birthday and he'll bust out these photos of yourself that you never even knew were taken or existed. And he's just got these gems. Always had a great eye for photography. And now he's always done great stencils for grip tape and stuff like that. And he's branched off into other things like these cool embroidery patches and custom. He does a bunch of stance socks, runs, and just a good friend. And he's the kind of guy that he'll push you to make those ideas that you've been kicking around your head. He'll light the fire under you to actually make them a reality. And he has that effect. He's creatively inspiring. So I'm stoked to call him a lifelong friend. Brother Mark, Hawaii's own. Mabu, love you. Who else we got here? Moving on. How about let's do John Lucero there.
Yeah.
Mr. John Lucero. And I've always been inspired by John. Growing up, I rode probably half a dozen of his boards. Schmidt sticks, always were making the best stain boards. And loved his boards. And then later in the 90s, I always loved Black Label ads. They just were such iconic looking, monotone, just rock and roll, just really good style and consistent, and just always loved his artwork. And later on, when I moved to California, I was working at PS Sticks. His office was in the same building, so I got to rub elbows with him and his crew. Ended up shooting some ads for him, doing videos with him, and became a great friend. So it's awesome when you meet your heroes that you've grown up kind of looking up to, and they're as cool as you would hope so. And so John was one of those guys, just a classic character. He's inspiring a lot of people, and between his artwork, his creative skating, and just his persona, John's definitely an icon of the sport. Yeah, love the guy. How about moving on? How about who we got here next? Let's see. How about Kareem Campbell? And Kareem's definitely a great icon with this sport. I never got to know him very well. Just met him a few times through working with him, and had an opportunity to shoot a couple portraits and jobs with him. But I remember watching the world videos in the 90s, and his street skating was just, it was very, it was watchable. Whereas a lot of the street skating in that movement was so technical with the switch and that, it wasn't as stylish, and it was technical, so you had to respect it, but it wasn't as inviting to the eye. But Kareem made it look good. He had that smooth style, which later he earned the godfather of smooth style skating, right? Did I get that right? A smooth street style. That's what Kareem was. And, you know, he was smart. He knew your arc of the skateboarding career, you know, it has a lifespan. So he was smart and started his own companies, Dwindle, Action Shoes, and still does City Skateboards today, City Star, excuse me. And yeah, just an icon and a really, really nice guy. And you know you made it when you're on Tony Hawk Pro Skater, right?
Yeah.
See. And moving on, we've got, how about we go with this guy right here. Eddie.
Yeah, they can't see that.
This is a little more underground skater named Eddie Nemeth, AKA Crazy Eddie. And he's from San Jose. He's a guy I met on a tour, a skate tour, and spent a week documenting him and his team. And first day we went on this tour, straight out of the van, he's doing some tricks and dislocates his right elbow, right? You can see in the photo, he's got some bandage on there. Dislocates his elbow. We get him together and get his elbow back in and pop it in. I mean, I don't even know how painful that is, but it's something that you would just probably get back in the van and go home. He went to the drugstore, bought a sling, wore the sling, and never said another word about it the whole trip, and ripped even harder. I mean, like backside tail slides, a huge thing, 360 with a sling. I mean, it's hard enough when you got both your arms trying to balance, but he was so hardcore about that. I mean, just a real, he's the most soft-spoken punk rock skater I've met. That is skateboarding. He just did his deal, one wing down, and just was so impressive. like I said, he's just soft-spoken. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but we do remember you, Eddie, RIP, brother. You are one of the good ones. Yeah. Definitely inspiring. Let's go for, how about Mark Gonzalez? Mr. Gonzalez, one of the more influential skaters in different avenues between skateboarding, art, and just approach to things. Again, I didn't really know him too well, just got to work with him a little bit, but this photo was taken at a pool in Fresno, skating with Sabo and the boys. Mark showed up with a couple of his friends. Session went down, this and that. He was taking a break, and I said, I better take this opportunity to grab a portrait of the Gons. Like, come on. So I got him into some open shade, asked him if he would do a portrait. He obliged nicely enough. And right after I shot the first shot, we got the call the cops are coming. So I'm trying to do it. He was still allowing me to shoot a couple portraits, and within everybody around us, the hasty exit, trying to go, I was trying to shoot, and with the Polaroid, it's a bit of a slow shutter, so they were coming out blurry. So I had like 3 or 4 photos on the curb that were blurry, and we were pretty much the last ones there to leave, and I shot one last one, and he just kind of looked around like, I gotta go, and then he saw the photos, scooped them up off the ground and took off, and left me there holding the last one as I'm watching it process and still trying to jump the fence at the same time, and just watched it become in my hand, and I was like, oh yes, thank you, nailed it. So that was a little backstory of that, but it was lucky to get a little sharp shot of the Gons. And these Polaroids, they last the test of time. A lot of them are over 30 years old, and they're still holding strong. So luckily, this one did too. All right, who else we got here? How about Cully? Mr. Sandridge, Cully. Cully was another one that really influenced me and inspired me to get into photography, because when I was younger, skating a lot of the pools back in the day, we didn't have parks, and we had our little crew, the Royal Hawaiian Pool Service. We just, with Grant Fukuda and Gary Owens and Kirk Murakami and a couple of our heads and myself, we would just find these pools. Gary wasn't working at the time, so he would just drive around Kahala at 5 miles an hour. He just had a knack to sniff out a pool. And when Cully would come, he would just attack so hard. He had his big dreads back then. He just was so wild and so core and so underground. I was like, I need to shoot this. Someone needs to see this, not just us, you know. So it really inspired me to start shooting, because he was just so violent, just so natural. And it just lit a fire under me to keep going. And later on, we all kind of went our separate ways a little bit, but Cully just always was a great inspiration. And nowadays, he's got a new daughter and a nice, good, great woman with him, and he's doing really good. So I'm really stoked for Cully. Yeah. But he was one of the original Dogtown of the Pacific rippers. He was underground, and just inspired a lot of people. But
Got him on an album.
yeah, exactly. That's right.
Same with Kareem Campbell earlier.
There you go. Yeah, all comes around. Probably. How about Tony Hawk? Why not? So I don't know if you've ever seen this guy before, heard of him. He's pretty underground, maybe in a Bagel Bites commercial or something. You might have seen him, but he's done a little skateboarding over the years. No, I'm just playing, probably the most popular skater on the planet, Mr. Hawk. But I was working at Quicksilver at the time, and he came in to do some sort of PR or something. Just the nicest guy. So I said, hey, you mind to shoot a portrait real fast right here by this window light? So I backed up, found some black foam core, and was shooting a couple, and I backed up into this emergency exit door and hit the alarm, which was so loud. So this alarm's going off as I'm trying to shoot this portrait, and he didn't flinch. He just helped me out, maybe squinted a little, which is why it kind of shows in this photo, but he let me shoot like 3 or 4 or 5 more photos, and I got some good ones with the just deafening alarm going off. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Tony, and a true professional in every sense.
Best stories behind these stories.
What an icon.
Amazing.
How about TNT there? Woo. Trujillo definitely was inspiring to myself with his just rock and roll approach. The way he skated, the tricks he chose, the long hair, the style, just really rock and roll, just influenced so much. He was really, really fun to watch skate. And I ended up working for a company that was sponsoring him for a hot second, got to do a couple of trips with him and just soaked it up. I mean, the guy was just true. So not a whole lot of backstory, but you know, Tony and his persona, he's just rock and roll. It's all there. Now, how about Joe Hammocky? Joe's another fellow skateboard documentary photographer, great photographer, and did a bunch of trips with him. As great as a photographer, he's as great as a human. He was so even keeled, because sometimes you go on these tours and the kids are whiny and everybody wants to do a different thing and everybody's fighting, or not all the time, but it happens. And Joe was just so mellow that he would mellow me out. He was just so even keeled that I'd just be like, look at Joe. Like, just let him neutralize the situation, and it would spread, and then he would neutralize other little bickerings going on, and the next thing we'd be skating and everybody would be back to normal. And just love Joe for that. He's a good guy, just a great photographer, such a great eye, talented, and
Ripper too.
And he ripped. Love to watch him do his Madonnas and a couple other hot go-to tricks he had. It was really all around just solid fellow. And unfortunately, not with us anymore, but we miss you, Joe, and RIP. Your photos live on. How about Dwayne? Dwayne Peters, the master of disaster, pretty much says it all. He's was on a big icon in the skateboard and punk rock movement, and a big part of the fusion of both. He's inspired and offended many people along the way. Love him or hate him, he's Dwayne. And John Lucero, I was lucky enough to help John create a documentary about Dwayne and his story. He was a big influence on John. I was just stoked to be part of the documentary. So I got to get to know him a little bit. And if you get to know him, he has such a classic sense of humor. He is a funny guy. He's not so serious, like just all punk rock all the time. The guy's got a classic view on life. And he made up a lot of tricks that we all still love to do. He's definitely one of the pioneers of that. And we all have our roller coasters in life. And John wanted to do a recap of the documentary we did because, later on it's a bit of unraveling a little bit within Dwayne's life, but he's back, and we kind of want to do a second part of the movie that portrays where we left off of the other one was such a happy ending. We want to do another showing to show the part 2. But Dwayne's still with us. Surprisingly, the Energizer Bunny just does not go down, and he's still delivering. So you got to respect that. DP, Master of Disaster. Who else we got here? How about these two guys right here? And this is Buddy Nichols, Rick Tarnowski, another couple of good friends. I wish I got to hang out with them more, but definitely on the forefront of the film movement within skateboarding and beyond. Just two really classic guys, quite different, but the same in many ways. And I've always loved their movies, from Fruit of the Vine, 10 Cities, and all the other ones they've done, just embracing the Super 8 as much as I loved it. And I'd love to do something with them in the future, but in the meantime, I'll just stay inspired with their future stuff and hopefully cross paths again someday. And still to call them my friend, these guys, Buddy and Rick, they're the best. All right, I think we got, let's go for Dylan here. We got Dylan Reeder. And this is a photo I captured when I was living in the basic pool for a little while. He came over with his mom and little session was going on. I think Pablo had just got him on Quicksilver. I think he's about 13 in this image. And just watching him skate, I could tell, I mean, anybody could just look at him and say, there's something different about him. There's something like really special. So I shot at this before he gets any older. So,
I'm waiting for you guys to finish your depressing on. Jeez.
Urge to be one of the most his skating just ooze style, just so style, heavier and his own, just the style was so fun to watch and work. Professional. And it wasn't just skateboarding. Because art, music, passion, all that style.
I know, I never heard of that.
Hey guys, if you just joined, please go ahead and feedback here.
I mean, for the record, at YK, that was like there was a kill holiday, but no hollies were killed. Like no hollies were even beat up. It was just a normal day, but everyone's just sleeping. You know? It's actually next door. We're watching what's happening right beyond this wall. It's a meeting with Jef Hartsel. They have a lot of like.
Been muted.
Well, you can mute this.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Sorry, Pat.
No sweat.
Man.
Dylan, back to D. He definitely influenced many around him with that style that he had. And he was just a cool cat. He was a cool kid, never loud or anything, but when he would say something or interact, he was smart. He got it. And he was funny too. He would say some classic stuff. Dylan definitely influenced many. And unfortunately, after a long courageous battle with leukemia, he's no longer with us. Gone way too soon. We all miss you, D. And yeah, we miss you, and the legend lives on. Gone but not forgotten. He loved Hawaii too. Some of his ashes are at Sandy, so yeah, we definitely miss you, D. I think that might be it from mine.
Yeah. Kick it over to Jeff.
Planned out, scripted or anything. Perfect. Freestyle. Perfect. Don't do too much.
All right, Jef Hartsel taking over.
Yeah, first image. So that's Tim Jackson, Dogtown skateboarder, good homie of mine. I skated with Timmy a lot. Best friends with his younger brother, Kelly Jackson, as well. Yeah, the Jackson brothers. Man, they grew up on the beach. They knew everybody, you know, from the essays to the skaters, the surfers, the B-boys, you name it. Yeah, and these guys excelled at all of those worlds too. I snapped this picture in the parking lot right next to where I lived on Dudley in Venice. This is one of my favorite ones. I just like this. I mean, putting DTS stickers on there and just that whole look. I remember not seeing it for many years, and then when I stumbled across these old Polaroids, I was so stoked to just see them. Brings back so much good memories from those days. But yeah, Tim Jackson, Ripper, Frontside Hurricane. I titled this one Hurricane Alley. For that reason. But great memories from Venice. See if I could operate this on my own. Oh, I could swipe?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. I lost that.
It's all good.
Already messing it up.
It's all right. They know that the analog photo store struggles with the digital world.
Okay, this one, J-Boy, stoked on this one. This was an egg bowl in the valley. We caught it early, but then it definitely became popular. I know everybody got to skated. We had skated sessions here with guys like Kasoy, Dressen, John Swope, Dennis Rats. Yeah, this was a good spot. Actually, I think I might have gotten a couple of tricks in rubber sheep in this pool. Yeah, J-Boy, rip. Speaking of John Swope, Mr. Swope, I think he lives in North Carolina now. Still stay in touch. Just a gnarly ripper, man. I just talked to Salva. I think John Swope might be one of Salva's favorite pool skaters besides Kelly Sandwich. Yeah, these guys are legendary. And these things weren't the most popular things to be skating when I shot these pictures. This is like when skating was, Vert was dead, and it was all about the new kids and streets, double-ended boards, double kicks, just all of the changes that was happening in skateboarding. It almost feels like it was happening overnight. But I mean, even with all that happening, for the older dudes like us, I mean, top of the food chain was always about pool coping, grinding it, and finding these secret spots and sharing it with your bros and meeting up with your bros. So yeah, it's just church of skateboarding. Yeah, when in selecting some of these photos, I talked to Pat and Bobby over here at Treehouse about like, hey, some of these pictures, I'm actually in them. But it was my camera and film. But anyways, I included some of these just because, they're special to me. This one mainly because of Doug Smith, the artist who painted this on the wall. I mean, Doug is like just an amazing guy. I look up to him so much. I mean, he was actually homeless the whole entire time I lived in Venice. Doug Smith, the artist who painted that. He also did my World Globes graphics, the famous SMA black and white handshaking graphics for Jesse. He did a lot of first generation Z-Flex stuff for Polar Bear, Shogo Kubo. He's even on one of the Circle Jerks album covers. Ground shot in the bottom of the keyhole in Marina Del Rey skate park. I mean, it all connects, it all ties together. That's what made it so freaking bad. I mean, everything from the music we chose to the art that we gravitated to, it all somehow had a weird connection with skateboarders too, and just the random photos that we would see. And I mean, there was no videos, no internet, nothing like that. You saw a little 1x1 photo, and we had to figure it out from there. And we did somehow. We all the dots connected. During this era, I wish I had taken pictures of all the poetry that Doug Smith used to write around the old Venice Pavilion walls. That's the pavilion wall right there that was next to the showers. And right next to the showers is where all those famous classic quarter pipe pictures of Venice that you see everyone shredding. And yeah, the Dragon. I was born a year of the Dragon. stuff from this. And that was the big move when I moved to Venice, was, wall rides. Yeah, that's me imitating one of Jesse Martinez's moves. Push up wall ride, ollie off the wall, catch the board off your feet, and complete the hand plan. Okay, that's a Venice wall as well. This little boy, his name was Peter. Kid was amazing. It says Peter wall jam at 6. I'm not sure if he was 6 at the time. I'm thinking now, being a father now, thinking back on this, it felt like he was more like 4 or 5. What's nuts about it is, Peter would just not really roam the boardwalk. He always stayed in the skate area, and we all looked out for him. Jesse really looked out for him. We all gave him equipment. Every night, right after the sun would set, the mom would come out from the apartments and onto the boardwalk and yell his name, and Peter would go home. And it was really uncommon back then to see a kid that young skating. I mean, especially without a guardian. So he kind of became his guardian. And, he was the raddest kid. I mean, the older cats could barely do a wall ride, push-up wall ride like that at the time. And he was doing it. That board was probably as tall as him too. I love the stickers on there too. Some of the writing. I didn't write that. I don't know who wrote that, but it's pretty sick. Ooh, one of my favorites. My interest in photography started really young. I'm bringing that up because of this image. Photography kind of kept me in school. It was actually my first love. Around the time that soon after I started skateboarding, was when I started taking photography in school. And I grew up with a darkroom pretty much everywhere I grew up living. Anywhere we would move, it's one of the first things I would set up as my darkroom. In fact, after moving to Hawaii and had made a connection with Mondo and Alba Skates and everything, and decided to move to Venice, I moved out there. I didn't even take a skateboard with me, actually, because I just took all my camera equipment. I took my larger, my chemical trays, my chemical tanks, all that kind of stuff. So I figured, I'll be able to set up a board. I'm going to work it out. So I just took all my camera equipment out there. I even set up a darkroom at Alba Skates and shot some photos, did some ads. But anyways, on that note, this picture, mention the photo background because I was going to mention the camera that I was using to shoot all these. This was actually the Polaroid Spectra series. And, it was after the SX70. It was, I don't know, it felt like it was kind of like they were promoting it and launching it like the new thing of the 80s. And it was called the Spectra. And the cool thing about that camera was that Polaroid made some filters for it. So I would try to collect those filters and I would try to put them to use, burn some film, whatever. And you never knew what you were going to get. And this one was just blew my mind, just how Christian's dad Ivan's on the right, Christian's on the left, and you have the perfect morphing of both in the center. Big up Ivan on the Big Island and Christian in Huntington. Bless up. Okay, this one, I titled this one Demo Lemo. It was strange times, man, after I had left Alba Skates and started skating for Rocco. And suddenly I'm like, where I used to go to demos in Mondo's Lowrider. Now I'm going to demos and limos with Rodney Moore on the left, Jason Lee in the middle, Jesse on the right. Something just came back to memory from just looking at this picture. I remember we were in a limo and Jason Lee wanted to go get candy before we went to the demo. So we stopped at this liquor store or something. So Jason looking super happy there with a bunch of candy on his lap. Rodney pulling out his stash. Jesse. Insane. And this one using a filter as well. This one was one of the lucky ones too. This one turned out a little different from how Ivan's and Christian's filtered shot came. This is me and Jesse in my house in Venice, at my gigs. One of my best friends for life. One of the only skaters, I mean, we're the same age too. Skaters have always been just much younger than myself, seems like for some reason. Except for all the dudes that I looked up to, guys like TA and everyone. Okay, this is a kind of a rare one, candid view of the Alva Boys, the Alva Posse. This is in San Francisco for the first Disco in Frisco contest. It's JT on the left with the Rastafari tracksuit with his leg up. Yeah, he had an injured knee. Got one of those right now as we speak. It hurts so much. But anyways, that's JT. That's Michelle. That was me and JT's roommate. I don't know if at that time if we were still roommates, but she was from Argentina, super cool sister. And yeah, when we first met her and told her we were going to be homeless, so she invited us into her home. And at that time, she was going out. She was dating Steve Jones of the Sex Pistols, which was pretty nuts. And but anyways, I won't get too far into that because I got stories upon stories that pile onto that. But anyways, that's Jason right next to her. Jason Herbici, I think his name was. He was an Alva Am rider that could have easily been a pro back then, even before me. He was, you know, the new generation, but yeah, he was an amazing skateboarder. Rest in peace. In the denim jacket, the one and only Fred Smith. I love Freddie. Yeah. Right behind Freddie, sorry, I gotta squint and see this. That's John Gibson, Bill Danforth right next to him, me, with Craig Johnson behind him, and that's Daryl Delgado from San Diego. Yeah, Frogtown. Munsky, and there's an unknown, and one of my best homies for life since the 70s, Jim Murphy, in front of everyone. Yeah, I always tell people when they mention the Chicago famous Alva team picture of us, you know, that was like one of the very, very few times when we were all together. We were such a big team and we were from all parts of the country. So, you know, rarely we would all be together. This was one of those rare moments too. It was in San Francisco. Okay, this is from the same trip. Aaron Murray dropped me in. I must have just called his name and I was behind him, took the shot. Still in Frisco. Same day, Chris Cook. Looks like he's in a half cab over the spine. I'm pretty sure that was my last professional contest that I entered. After that, I bowed out of competition and all that. Was eager and looking forward to see what else I could get into. And I'm not sure if this was from the same trip, but this is in Frisco as well. And thinking about it, I'm thinking it might have been before Disco in Frisco. But and I forget the name of the famous hotel where this was taken to. But that's Jim Murphy on the left, Chris Cook on the right. And this was for the video premiere of the Alva Boys Backyard Annihilation video. Yeah, that was kind of mind-blowing to me because, you know, there was no video premieres or anything still yet back then. And, TA and his wife at the time, Vicky, to put it all together and make this happen for us. It was pretty sick. Notice, if you zoom in on this picture too, notice there's a Hartsel sticker and a Murph sticker. I was just talking to Murph the other night too. Love you, bro. Cooksy, where are you? Come Hawaii, stay with me. Another Coke and filter shot. This is Kevin Ansell, legendary Dogtown artist. Yeah, what can I say? He's just done so much iconic graphics for guys like Nodis, Aaron Murray, not to mention, you know, the legend says that Kevin was the one that doodled on a napkin in a bar, the Spitfire burner art, and that became what it is today. Yeah, I became friends with him after I moved to Venice, Dogtown. he was actually living in China at the time. I moved to China for a while. I was studying a lot of art and just pursuing some personal things too. So it was really exciting. I'm sure everyone in the neighborhood was super stoked when Kevin came back. Respect. This was taken my last night in LA before I moved back to Hawaii after the whole pro skateboarding thing, and I had been out there working as a graphic artist and doing a lot of production work. I ended up working for a company called California Silkscreen after I had left World Industries, and that's the company that pretty much printed all the stickers, every surf lamp, t-shirts, and just everything in skateboarding. Name a company, it ran through that company, and I was lucky to start working there, and I worked my way up as art director, and that was around the time when slick bottom skateboards was happening. That was one of my main challenges, and one of my main jobs of that era was trying to figure out how to print thermo inks onto paper and transfer it onto the slick bottom plastic material. But anyways, this is my last night in LA. Super stoked. Mark Gonzalez to the left of me showed up. That's Albert Naftali. It's a roster brethren from the 12 Tribes. One of my best friends still to this day. And he's the one that made the track I style for me in Rubbishy. You guys know what I'm talking about there. Anyways, from the same night, yeah, Ron Chapman and Mark came. That was just so awesome. Love these guys. I really can't say much more than what's been said about these guys already. Respect. That's Ron Chapman, one of his house visits at my crib. Classic. That phone answering machine right there. Pre-cell phones. And this is at the same gates. This is you see a art table. That's technically, I guess, my kitchen / dining room. But that was JT and John Thomas and I lived together at the time, and that's where we create our art. And my last graphics for World Industries, the Wisdom Tree graphic, Mark McKee had come over. I think Ron Chapman came with him. This must be the same day. And Mark McKee sat down in front of that art table and talked about ideas for my last graphics, and we actually started the tree graphic right there on that table. Yeah, a lot of memories. All my good brethren from the 12 Tribes from all over Southern California. Brethren on the left, Simeon, Stephen Simeon, he's from Canada, Alex Gadd, DJ Aliwad, LA, African Unity, Brethren Danites from Cerritos. This is my last image, one of my favorites. That's Barrington Levy to my right. I was skateboarding just right on Windward Avenue, right where that pole jam picture was taken. Anyone that's been to Venice, all the sunglasses to towels, t-shirts, incense vendors lined up all along the beach. Well, it just so happens I was just skating and kicking it, and I had no TV or anything like that, but definitely love reggae music. Love Barrington Levy and some of his records, but a lot of even the images of Barrington was just illustrations on a record at the time. I don't know what made me key in on him and another brethren that was with him, and they were checking out sunglasses at a sunglass booth. I kept looking like, man, that guy looks like Barrington Levy. And so I was just kind of tripping on it, and they were shopping, and I must have been like 20 feet away. But anyways, after they had made your purchase, I kind of like yelled out like, Barrington. And sure enough, he looked over, and I was like, whoa. I was like, Barrington Levy? And he's like, yeah, man. And I'm like, yeah. So yeah, I introduced myself and actually took him to my gates, to our house. And John Thomas was actually in the shower at the time. We walked into the crib. I was like, JT, you're never gonna guess who's in the house. And he came out, and there was Barrington Levy in our kitchen with his brethren, and we reasoned, and I put on some music, and Barrington sang some of his most iconic tunes in our kitchen. It was pretty sick, man. But yeah, those were the times back then, you know. Yeah, just something that I kind of figured out when I moved to LA and living in Southern California for the first time and skating around Hollywood and all that, is like I realized, like, wow, you know, all the famous peoples, celebrities, and all these well-known peoples of the world, you know, they walk the same sidewalks that we walk and skate on every single day. And it manifested more than once, many a times, just incredible, just chance meetings and happenings, you know, guys like Miles Davis, or you name it, just the list is endless. I've met so many people just from skateboarding and just doing what we do as skateboarders. And every skateboarder has a story like that too. And but yeah, that's it for my last image, I think.
Beautiful.
Sick. Awesome.
Maybe do some Q&As.
Yeah, definitely have some questions. We got about 10 minutes left, but thank you for that, guys. The story time with Hartsel could just go on forever. I feel like the archives
Oh my God.
just stacked.
If I could just
Yeah.
add one thing before we sum it up. First of all, I wanted to thank Bobby and Drew at Treehouse here for hosting us and giving us this opportunity. I sat on this project for a long time and kind of hung it up when they stopped making that Time Zero film. But now with all the film here, I think I'm gonna pick it back up and keep it going. And I encourage anybody else to come down and rub elbows with these guys. They got a library of knowledge, all formats, and you know, pick up a roll or a pack and create some two-dimensional memories, because they just get better as we get older. And it's timeless.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. That kind of leads me into one of the questions I wanted to ask both of you guys, but Pat, I'll go with you first. Just talk a little bit, like, you've shot a bunch of formats, you've shot digital, right, video, photo, all that stuff. What is special about Polaroid? What sets that apart? What keeps that place in your heart for
What was
Polaroid?
fun, especially about this project, was when you ask somebody for their portrait, maybe not know them, and they're, you know, somewhat celebrity maybe, and just you bust out the camera, it unfolds, and it's cool. It's a cool camera. They look at it and they're like, oh okay. And then as you're shooting, you can leave them with 2 or 3 extras, you know. So they have, so you're not taking the photo, you're not just taking, you're actually able to give, and they can take it with them and have, you know, refrigerator magnet material or whatever, and you know, they remember you remember them, and it's kind of a give and take thing. And each one of one, you know, it's its original portrait, so that makes it special. You can't print it from a negative, or you can of course scan it, but yeah, it's that one of one, so it makes it that much special.
Okay, awesome. And yeah,
We were talking when we were, you know, brainstorming for this thing. We were talking about, like, and this film wasn't cheap back then. You know, I think we said there was like 8 per pack for like $20 or something.
So like a little over $2 a pop, so you gotta make them count.
Yeah, and yeah, even selecting the images, you know, we both were so stoked to have the stacks that we did, but I know for a fact we shot way more. And just like Pat said, you know, we were gifting them as we were shooting them, and yeah, something about pointing a Polaroid to someone, I think it's less threatening and invasive. I think, you know, people are like, yeah, and it just instantly creates like a photo booth atmosphere wherever you're at, you know. And what's cool about it too is, like, you know, usually after you take the shot, you get to huddle around it, holding it together, the photographer and the subject, watching it come to life, you know.
So it's fun, yeah. And there's other techniques that people have adopted where you can take a pencil or something and squish the chemicals around the background and make your own abstracts. And I've seen like whole campaigns done with that. So there's just all kind of cool possibilities with it, yeah. And they last.
Yeah, surprise.
Apparently.
yeah, that's awesome. Couple more minutes. Just throw another one. You had this story about the cops rolling you guys when you were shooting that photo of Mark Gonzalez, and then the Tony Hawk with the siren going off, the emergency alarm. Are those like you have any other sketchy situations in the line of duty as a photographer, a skate photographer?
I'm trying to think. I'd have to kind of go through them and remember all of them. It's been kind of a while.
Well, since we're usually trespassing as these shots are being taken.
Yeah, it's part of skateboarding is bending the rules a little bit, makes it fun. But in terms of classic background stories, I don't know off the top of my head. I'd have to delve into a little bit more. But those are the two that kind of stuck out.
Yeah, those are two good
that I
ones.
earmarked for this. But all of them have their own cool stories, whether you're really connected to the person you're shooting, or they were just, hey, can you help me with a photo? They all kind of share their different values. But the whole project was a lot of fun. And like I said, I want to keep it going with the new films we have now. It's just keep it going. Yeah, different. It doesn't have to be, star athletes, just anybody, interesting people, just interesting looking people. Yeah. And I love the Polaroid because like that first one, when I found that lighting situation that I liked, I tried to emulate that with each one. I mean, sometimes you can't because you're just in the middle of wherever you are, but I always did it in the open shade. So open shade was my friend. You get hard sunlight, you get some contrast. Open shade was good, but the shutter was slower, and the depth of field is a little more shallow, which made it nice too. So it was really forgiving in open shade. Although if you had a little bit of a cool setting, it would be very blue. A little warmer, it would go yellow or more warm. So you kind of just went where it goes, which is the beauty of the Polaroid also.
Awesome. Yeah, I think last one for Jef, just talk a little bit more. I mean, you kind of touched on it with all your stories, but like we were talking about when we were installing the show on Friday, how you've moved all these places in your life, right? You like gone everywhere, all over the place. Kind of what you've brought with you, and then how skateboarding and photography have helped you kind of transition and become a part of these different communities and make these connections throughout your life.
Yeah, I mean,
if you can answer that in 5 minutes, I know that's a deep.
I mean, it really is a blessing just how interconnected all these crafts are. You had mentioned about my background, just, my father was in the military, so every 3 years we packed up and left. So I was constantly making friends and losing friends. And skateboarding and photography and the arts, it's just something that you don't need a team necessary to do. They're kind of like solitary pursuits by nature. And so that was a life-saving thing for me. I had found something that I really loved and had a passion for, and to the degree of like nothing's going to stop me from doing this. And so yeah, I was able to get through the hard teenage years and moving and losing good friends and all those things, and was isolated for many years, at least in my early years. But because of those interests is what in the end connected me to all my friends and families and peoples and my heroes that I've looked up to in skate or in photography. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but I'm stoked, man. Skating and photography, they're both creative outlets. And I mean, like the culture of skateboarding, what makes it so rich is definitely, all the photo documentations of it. And now we're in an era where it's all video documentations of it. And after many years of that, I've been hearing it and seeing it, and people talking about like video is so important, but nothing like a nice photo too that you can hang on the wall. Or I think a lot of our memories in skate is photographs. Yeah, not everyone was lucky enough to have seen artists, skating down the street. But yeah, they're both great creative outlets.
That's
limitless.
awesome. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a perfect kind of note to wrap it up on. That's amazing. You guys have anything else?
Just one last thing,
Yeah.
kind of on that note too, was, I've been shooting, we've both been shooting a long time, love of photography and film format. And I haven't done many shows. This is probably the first one I've done in a long time, but it's a lot of fun. And the objective for me was because I've been inspired, like you're saying, you see a photo of somebody and you just remember that photo of back in the day, wherever it was, like it's so inspiring to you. And so my goal would be, if I could, to inspire others, whether it be people from these generations that we shot that have rubbed elbows and share stories with each other from them, and seen some of the photos that were of younger kids that are now, 15, 20 years older, and they can get a gas out of it. And then also for the younger generation that might not know who a lot of these people are, they can do their homework and research and learn about the tricks that they invented that the kids are trying nowadays, and pioneered all the movements before. Because back in the day when there were just not that many pros, there were rock stars like Mr. Hartsel here, they were really, and now there's just so many, it's so saturated, and they're still awesome. And then also just to inspire people that maybe not into skateboarding to come down and buy a pack of Polaroid, shoot a roll and see what comes, and all those happy accidents and all those fun things that come with it, and then get inspired to create.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
So it's
Right
all
on.
about,
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jef and Pat. Thank you, guys.